How many of you realize it's important for us to obey God's directions?
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Well, we're going to talk about one. We're going to talk about one word. Worry. One of American, well, I don't know, it's probably worldwide, but I know in the church it's bigger than probably it is in the world. Excuse me. I didn't have anything to drink. Not even, that's probably a problem. But water. Christians worry more than non-Christians, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's true.
But it's the truth. You're right. Do you know why? Who can tell me why they think that might be true? Any hands? Adam.
Because they know what's coming and their expectation is high and they don't see it happening, worry comes in.
That's right. People in the world could care less because most people in the world only think about today. They think about themselves. Everything is up in the air. They have no real anchors. Even if they have, plans, their plans are kind of their plans, and they come and they go, and there's no direction. But Christians have directions. Christians have a real commitment that goes beyond the grave, and so they're always conscious of what they should do, and the fact that they're a believer and that the unsaved world is dependent on how they do their Christianity. I mean, if we sit down on the porch on our rocking chair and try and watch the crops grow and wonder why there's nothing out there because nobody went out to sow, nobody went out to water, no one fertilized, no one pulled weeds, or if they did, then they sit in there and they watch it grow, and then when harvest comes, they go in the kitchen and wonder why the corn's not in a bin. You have to do. So we think about all these things. We also think about the fact that our character affects those around us. We also think about our having right doctrine. You don't want to teach somebody something that's totally false. And in order for you not to do that, you've got to know your own basic doctrine. Now, I'm not talking about deep theological truths, because you can write volumes, and I've got hundreds of books. I'm both at home and here. The only reason I have some here is because my wife made me take them out of the house. So I have two libraries, and plus thousands of books on my computer. Thousands of perspectives on one topic. You have no idea how many different books I have just on the word soteria. Salvation. Then there's the Holy Spirit. And I can actually categorize, but the anointing is on the Word. And we're called to be a separated people.
Amen.
How many of you here are trying to live a separated life? Now, I'm not talking about becoming the Belgrade hermit. I'm talking about you separate yourself from the lifestyle and activities that you had before you were born again.
Amen.
Why? Because you're called on to set a visible example of what it's like to have Christ in your life. And I had a lot of friends, even in Bible college, that I used to hope that they wouldn't tell anybody they were Christian because their example stunk. I just recently heard about a minister that pastors a very large church. Now, I'm not talking about the mega churches. And if you've got over 1,000 people, you're in a very large church. And this person has that, and everybody loves him, great preacher, dynamic personality, the whole 9 yards. And someone that we know told us that one of their church members happened to be at a restaurant. That's a person we talk to occasionally on the phone, nobody from around here, and said, still a pastor. Yeah? And she asked her why. He said, well, I was just sitting in a booth in a restaurant, and I heard this person talking and using the most foul, filthy language. And I didn't look when the person got up to leave with their friend, kind of talk, how did she describe it? Ghetto talk?
Oh,
But the little boy room that they write on the bathroom stalls, the 4-letter with the F, using that profusely. And the person got up, and so she kind of took a peek to see and found herself face to face with this very well-known pastor.
said it was her past.
Oh, it was her pastor. See, that I didn't know. That must have been embarrassing.
It shocked her.
And what did he say? Apologized for...
No, he didn't apologize. He said, "Hey, can I buy you your lunch?" To get her money.
Yeah. Can I bribe you to shut up? The girl, from what I understand, the girl didn't go around spreading it with everybody else. She spread it with a friend who's in the ministry that she's been very close to. But hopefully, because nobody's perfect, and you can slam your thumb in a door or stub your big toe walking through the living room on your way to the kitchen in the middle of the night to get a drink without having the lights on. And do you know that words that have been lying dormant in you can sometimes come out of your mouth? Now, God, some of you perfect Christians, I'm sure you would never say darn. But unfortunately, all of us, I'd say just about all of us have used words worse than darn, and then kind of done. But this person was using it as just part of their comments, regular comments. Hopefully, nobody else in that restaurant knew this person was a minister and paid no attention to the person's looks, so that when they saw him on an advertisement or on television, they wouldn't go, "Oh." You don't know who's around you. But what that would tell me is there's some issues with that person's walk. And honestly, one of the roots of that kind of activity, believe it or not, one is fear, but the bigger one is worry. They're fearful of not being accepted as a believer, in his case, as a minister of any value, and worried that other people would see it too. And so you've got to be cool nowadays to be a minister. You reach the young people. You got to be cool, and being cool, that's fine. High five, low five, 27 slaps, hugs, kicks, bumps, whatever, to say hello and goodbye. Sometimes the hellos and goodbyes take longer than the conversation. But right, you got to have Air Jordans. They can't be the old ones. They got to be the new ones. All that stuff. You can get so caught up in all that in order to be a success. To quote unquote in your own mind be a successful minister or a successful person, successful business person, right briefcase, right sport coat, right car, right neighborhood, that whole garbage. I mean, I'm sure even plumbers shop around to find out which jeans don't make it to their waist, just so that they can fit in with their community. But you know what I'm talking about. But that's worry. That's fear and worry. Worry and fear are brother and sister. So I want to talk to you about worry. Turn to Matthew, the 13th chapter, for just a moment with me. I'm going to be teaching you predominantly today, so we may go through these quickly, take notes. If not, we will have it online. How long does it normally take, Josh? 2 days. So in 2 to 3 days, middle of the week, this will be online. Matthew chapter 13 and verse 22. He also that received seed among the thorns is he that hears the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. Now that word care is the Greek word merimna. Merimna. And it's translated this way: distraction, anxiety, worry. Listen to this. This is a literal definition of that one word. weeds of worry and illusions. Weeds of worry and illusions. Worry is an illusion. Worry creates an illusion. When you worry about something, you have a picture of the downside of the situation in your mind, and it's not real. At that moment, it's an illusion. But the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So to stay in having weeds of worry that create illusions means you will eventually bring it to birth in your life. That thing that was an illusion. You will actually create the truth of your worry. That's pretty scary when you think about it. Webster's dictionary calls worry concern, pain of mind, an apprehension of evil, concern for safety or protection. Now you'd say, well, wow, some of these worries are legitimate worries. I mean, there are times when we need to know that and have a healthy concern for safety or protection. Well, worry is never healthy. Worry won't protect you. Doing something about the threat will. Worry won't protect you. Matter of fact, worry generally causes a person to put off action. Because most of the time, if we act to eliminate the worry, we're affecting other people or other situations. Because usually it's appeared problems coming from a real source of problems in general. Someone, something, some place, some time, some action. How many of you know people that you would say, you've heard people say, oh, that guy or that girl's trouble. And so you think and you say, okay, if I don't want to get in trouble, I don't hang around this person. Or if I spend time with this person, sooner or later, I will get in trouble. Or angry people. An angry person can be your best friend until they're angry. And they may not be angry at you, but you can eventually become the source of their anger. People that are angry, who have friends around them, want the people around them to agree 100% with their justifiable right to be angry. And because they have the justifiable right to be angry, they have the right to act on their anger towards what they consider the problem. And the problem with hanging around people like that is you can become the source of their solution to the problem. You grow up in high school, if you grew up in a rough neighborhood and you were a nerdy kind of kid, they're the people who always knocked you, steal your food from your lunch tray, trip you in the hallways, all those things that people do, name calling and stuff like that. You have to stay away from people like that, because once it's affected you and now you're concerned for your protection, then you begin to worry. The next thing you know, you're projecting a scenario of yourself walking down, the school hallway or going to your job or this happening or that happening, and all of a sudden this entire half-hour soap opera takes place in your mind in a matter of seconds, and you see yourself at the end of it as the poor, damaged victim. And when that happens, you will actually, whether you realize it or not, you will walk out what you believe. That's called putting action to your faith. You can have faith for good things or faith for bad things. So worry is a dangerous thing. Matthew calls, in that verse, Matthew calls worry unfruitful and barren. most of our worry is spending time wasting away our mind, our emotions, and our energy and our peace on things that will never produce fruit and are barren in themselves. See, I was taught that a thought not spoken dies unborn. The Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. And they that love it, the power of the tongue, will eat its fruit. Well, your fruit will be life or death. And you can't say, well, one's good and one's bad. It depends on what that tongue is applied to. Because you can speak death to an attack from the enemy, and that's when death becomes good. Or you can speak life to an attack from the enemy, and that becomes bad. Just as you can speak life to the promises of God, and then turn around and make a negative confession and speak death to its ability to manifest on your behalf in this world. So you need to be very careful what you meditate on and what you speak. And what Matthew is saying is, when it's worry, you're already in the negative. Worry is by its nature negative. It's worrying about something that might happen. You say, well, I got a letter from the IRS and they're going to audit me and I'm worried about the audit. Actually, it's not the audit you're worried about. You'd say, well, yeah, it is. I'm worried about the audit. No, you're not. You're worried they're going to find something and take all your money away. And so you start thinking about, oh, did I do this right? Did I do that? Was I wrong to take the dog as a deduction? You know, we laugh, but Carmen knows what I'm talking about. People do screwy things. I had a relative who used to claim his dog. It was his cat. It was. You can tell whose side of the family it was on. My less than, some of my less than stellar relatives just didn't file taxes. But isn't that what you're really worried about when you get a letter from the IRS? God, it's going to cost me money. I'm in trouble. Am I going to get a jail term? You know, and then you find out they got a receipt for interest you had on a savings account for a Christmas club you forgot you opened, and you owed them $4.86 in taxes plus a $50 late fee. Well, that's not great, but that's a whole lot better than you pictured having to file bankruptcy, you know, get your car repoed and everything because you got a letter from IRS. And nobody, when they get a letter from IRS, ever stops and makes themselves think, oh, awesome. You always think it's evil. Why? Because everybody told you it's evil. I got a letter from IRS before my wife and I left to move to Oklahoma. At the time, I was working an electrician at Bath Iron Works on the FFGs, and I was told I owed all this money from a company I had worked for. It was advance money, part of training and learning to so forth. And so everybody said, oh my God, it was like $6,000 plus penalties because it was like 7 or 8 years old. And I never filed it. So I just wrote him a letter. And I said, this was not income. This was advance money on future earnings. So if I didn't earn the money, I didn't owe it to them. That was their risk for bringing me along to help me take care of my own expenses. But so IRS looked at it as a gift. And do you know what they did? They didn't even send me money. They didn't even send me a bill for the taxes on the gift. They just forgave the whole thing. Said, sorry, forget about it. And that wiped out about $11,000 a bill. I mean, IRS does screwy things. But my point is, if I'd have done what most people do, I might have created a bigger bill. because I had faith. And even unsaved people have faith. They believe what they hear themselves say. So remember, worry is really unfruitful and barren, meaning it's not going to do you any good. It's not going to worry, because it's not going to produce any fruit to solve the problem, and it's barren of any ability to do so. Psalm 127, verse 2 says this: "It's vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrow." It's vain for you to get up too early, to stay up too late, and while you're up, eat the bread of sorrow. In other words, that's what you're eating in your mind. For the only thing that you've done is lost sleep, right? You've lost sleep. But God gives His beloved sleep. So why are you up early? Why do you, when you go to sleep, get up too early, go to bed too late, worrying about something, and you lose the precious sleep that God's given you over something that is barren and unfruitful? That word vain, what it says it's vain to do this, the word there means very similar. Empty, worthless, listen close, false. But the definition from the Hebrew scholars that I read said this word false in that scenario means false in God, in God's and the believer's realm.
That's bad.
It's false in God's realm and the believer's realm. In other words, for as David would say it, a man with a covenant, a woman with a covenant whose God is the Lord, that kind of worrying is false, because those are not things that come on the beloved. Don't worry about it, because God's your rear reward, your rear guard. He's got you covered all the way around. You're wearing the armor of the Lord. Matthew 6:25 says this. I'm just going to read the first part. "Therefore I say to you, take no thought for your life." What just happened was God has forbidden you to worry.
That's right.
That's a command.
That's right.
That wasn't a request.
That's right.
Take no thought for your life. It's forbidden to worry.
That's right.
Take no is the main root of the word take no is the same Greek word from care, merimna. Here it's merimnao, and it means this: don't be anxious about or have a care. Take no. Don't be anxious or have a care for your life. And the word in this case, take no thought, the word thought is the word may, which is the first part of the word I just gave you in Hebrew on take no. It's a qualified negation. Do you know what I mean by a qualified negation? In other words, it's not a flat out no to anything and everything concerning this situation. It's I'm giving you this advice. Take no thought. Okay, it's qualified, and then he goes on to tell you why. You could say it this way: take no thought lest this happens. Or take no thought and you'll avoid the risk associated with taking that thought. Take no thought of fear. What happens when you fear? Your body goes through gyrations. You act dumb, and you can end up hurting yourself in fear. Soldiers during combat, many of them died not because they were not capable of protecting themselves or that there wasn't an avenue of escape or a place they could go for protection or support they could have to get through a situation. So many soldiers are lost in battle because they get scared and do something stupid as a result of their fear.
Yes.
It's true. And so we battle the enemy all times. Don't do something stupid by being rash. It can cost you. Luke 12:29 says this, "Seek not what you shall eat or what you shall drink, neither be ye of a doubtful mind." So we're told once it's forbidden to worry. Then he goes on to say, seek not to worry. Some people have so little to do in their brain, they look for things to worry about. Do you know what I call those people? Jobless people who have too much time on their hands, or they're a night shift worker who sits in a chair and guards an empty parking lot. You got too much free time. All you can do is think and create problems. If you let your mind wander, your mind will always wander to the wrong thing if you're not filling yourself up on the Word.
That's right.
That word seek is the word zeteo, and it means crave or demand something. Demand something from. This, I love this definition. Worship. Now we're talking a negative here. Worship. Another definition is plot against life or your faith in God. Do you know what it means to plot? Make plans to do something that will have a negative effect on your life or your walk or your faith in God. It's don't require something. And that word not, again, it's may. Avoid the risk of worrying about what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, because it creates a doubtful mind. And the minute you have a doubtful mind, you no longer have the faith to receive the promises of God. He said, but won't God give it to you anyway? God will never violate His word. He may, over time, He will send people to us when we have hardship to try and help us out. But that should only happen when we're in the thumb-sucking, formula-eating diaper phase of our Christian walk. Nothing more pathetic than a 30-year-old Christian spiritually wearing diapers, sitting in mommy's lap, sucking on a pacifier because they've never allowed themselves to grow. They've never filled themselves up on the Word. They've never developed their faith. They've never stepped out to believe for anything. They have just tried to skate through till Jesus comes. And what they do is what this tells you not to do. If you stay a perpetual baby, you will always try and figure the angles to get your needs met and totally ignore the promises of God meeting your need by His Christ, by His riches in glory through Christ Jesus. You can always tell a baby Christian, they've got more angles than a mathematician's ruler. As a matter of fact, if baby Christians would spend as much time studying the Word and standing on it as they do figuring out a way to get somebody else to answer their problems, they wouldn't have any problems. At least not the ones that they're constantly working to take care of. And the thing is God's saying, that definition, worship, seeking after something God tells you not to seek after, is worshiping the exact opposite of God's truth. In other words, you would rather believe a lie than the truth. The Bible says Remember, you know the story about those people sowing, the farmers sowing in the different types of soil. And when it hits that hard ground, it says the devil comes immediately. And then when it hits the next ground, the devil pushes up the rocks. You say, the devil doesn't push up the rocks. Oh yeah, if you've never planted a garden, you can take every rock out of a garden and come back next season and there are more rocks than there were before because the ground underneath you is always moving. And if you don't take them out, your plants won't survive. And then there's that next group that's a better soil, the rocks are taken care of, but the weeds are there and the person doesn't deal with the weeds and the enemy comes and gives you more weeds and the cares of this life, of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke out the plant, meaning the devil kills you with worrying about the cares of this life and the deceitfulness of riches. Worry will kill you. It's a sin and it's forbidden. Other than that, no sweat. Philippians 4:6 says this, be careful for nothing. That's going to be a tough one, y'all. But in everything, say everything. Everything. Say nothing. Nothing. Who here does not know the difference between those two words? Anybody? Okay. If God says be careful for nothing, is there anything excluded about worrying about something? Is there anything in that statement that gives you permission from God by the power of the Holy Ghost to put that into the mind of the writer, to put in the Bible? Is there anything that you could ever confront in this life or in your eternal reward that allows you to worry about it? You sure? All right. Think about that. Think about that closely. How many things are you worried about and that occupy your mind that God's promises have already given you, given me? Most of the time when people counsel with me, the real problem's them, even if they want counseling for other people. Because they've got a situation they don't believe the Word will take care of, or they don't believe they can get the Word to work. But there are some promises that are such that God just says, rest in me, and I'll fulfill it. But they can't do that. Some people cannot rest in Christ. If their little pinkies aren't in it, it won't get done. That's their mindset. And that's what usually messes things up. Be careful for nothing. Another translation of it is, be anxious about nothing. That word nothing is the Hebrew word medais. It means not, listen to this, not even one thing. That's a literal definition. So he's saying here, be careful for not even one thing. Period. Anybody here worried about paying bills? Don't have to raise your hands. Anybody here worried about relationships? Anybody here worried about your health? Anybody here worried about retirement? Anybody here worried about your kids? Anybody here worried about relatives? Let's see. Anybody got any others I can think of? Disease, sickness. Anybody else think of anything? Your car. There are all kinds of things you can think about. Worried that they're not going to get promotion. Worried that the company they work for is going to lay people off. God forbids you to give it any thought whatsoever. But if I don't worry about this person, they won't worry about themselves. So I have to do it for them. Oy vey. No, that's true. It's what people do. Mothers worry about their sons who could give her rip. Brothers worry about their sisters. Sisters about their brothers. Wives about their husbands. Husbands about their wives. I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried. And the believers, God says, no. You go before God and say, oh, I'm worried about it. Stop it. Stop what? Stop worrying. Yeah, but what's going to happen with it? Lay it on the altar. Amen. If I lay it on the altar, that means I have to take my hands off it, God.
That's right. That's right.
And the little girl gets $1,000. Yes, exactly. But if my hands aren't on it, I can't control the time frame or the way it plays out. Bingo! $2,000 bonus, young lady. The contestant is on a roll. Yes, but if I can't control it, things may happen in that person's life I don't want to happen. And if you get honest, and because I don't trust you to work it out gently the way I would work it out gently, God, you may allow him a couple of bumps in the road. And you, lady, have won the grand prize of the day for 3 right answers consecutively. I had somebody tell me recently, I've always taught, parents never interfere in God's dealing with your children. Stop bailing them out of their problems. Because God is always working to put them on this mountain pathway that will lead them to the top of a precipice. You say, well, I'm afraid that if they get to the top of the precipice, they'll fall off and be damaged. So I take them off and rescue them. I pay this bill. I do that. I do this. I do that. And guess what? The only thing you've succeeded in doing is putting that person right back at the bottom of the mountain, and God's making him go up the mountain again. You say, well, every time he gets to the bottom of the mountain, he goes through it again. Yes, because you're interfering with God's plan. God wants rebellious people to come to the precipice. A precipice is the edge of a cliff. You say, oh, why would God want that? God always knows what he's doing. And before we go today, I'll give you a reason for that, but I want to move on. If I don't say it, you can remind me. As I said earlier, worry is a sin. Romans 14:23 says, whatever is not of faith is sin. Period. It's a sin. Because it's doubting God's promises in his word. Worry causes health, emotional, and spiritual problems.
That's right.
Matter of fact, the bulk of sicknesses and diseases, doctors say, are psychosomatic. They're self-induced. You believe something long enough, and it will actually be created in your body. I just tell you really quickly, Benny Hinn had 2 ladies who came in one of his crusades to be prayed for cancer. He laid hands on the one lady. She believed she received when hands were laid on her. And she was totally, instantaneously cured of cancer. The other person believed she had cancer, had gone to the doctors many times, has had many tests, and they could never find cancer in her body. All of her tests were negative, but she was convinced she had cancer. She had a lot of psychosomatic symptoms that she felt. And he said, well, you just stand in faith, thank God that you're healed. She went home, but couldn't do what Benny Hinn told her to do, really didn't receive. She left, she was hoping, but she was hoping for God to heal her body, but she wasn't open to him healing her mind and her emotions. So she went home, and a year later, these 2 ladies knew one another. A year later, the one came back, I'm totally healed. He said, how's your friend? He said, she died. I said, what did she die of? They don't know. She wasted away like a cancer patient, but they did an autopsy and other tests, and every test that they found basically said a healthy person died for no apparent reason. That's right. Because her mind, her worries thwarted the promise of long life and health from God. And so her mind killed her. Her thoughts killed her. Her determination to doubt God's word killed her. We don't like that. We get upset about that, but I didn't write the book. And if you don't like my interpretation, read the book and find out his interpretation in some places is rougher than mine. I'm being kind. Matthew 6:24. Matthew chapter 6:24. No man can serve two masters, for either he'll hate the one and love the other, or he'll hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You can't serve the promises of God and worry. An acquaintance of mine who was a Christian rock musician back in the late 60s, early 70s. Light acquaintance now, but I played music with him one time and we had a good time. But he wrote a song and it was called "Which Side Are You On, Boy?" And it was all about choosing. Whose side are you really on? Just like Joshua said to the people. He says, listen, you got to make a decision today. Either you're going to serve God who took you out by a mighty hand of Egypt, took you through the Red Sea and sustained you. They were on the edge of the promised land getting ready to go in. You saw mighty miracles, or you can either go back and serve the gods of Egypt. But make your decision today. You and I have to decide either all the word is true or none of it. You know why you're not saved tomorrow? You ain't there yet. You know why you're not prospered tomorrow? You're not there yet. You don't know why you're delivered. How come am I going to be delivered from an accident tomorrow? You're not there yet. If there's an accident, he'll deliver. Stop worrying about tomorrow. Stop worrying about tomorrow. He only gives you provision for today. But you and I always want tomorrow covered before we get there so we can relax. If you can't relax in today's promise in Christ, if you can't rest in Christ today on every area of your life, you will not rest in Christ tomorrow. You won't do it. So you're going to say, well, how do I stop worrying, Pastor? That's really easy. This is my last sermon. My last sermon. What don't I know, Father God? I pray that was not prophetic. So, the Bible says out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And I remember Ken Jr. one time was going to speak at this church, and he walked into the sanctuary in the afternoon because he wanted to just see what it was like and walk around and pray. And there was a technician working on the sound system, and as he walked by, this is back when Word of Faith was just getting really, really popular and people were learning about watching their confession. And he looked over at the technician and he says, oh, gremlins in the machinery, huh? And the guy rebuked him. Oh, don't say that. That's a negative confession. I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. You know, you're going to caught. And he looked at him and says, it says, if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth, not if you make a joke. You see how legalistic people can get? Psalm 37. Who's there? I'm almost done. Psalm 3:7, and we're going to look at some verses. I'm going to talk to you about how not to worry. Let's take a look at verse 3 of 37. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shall you dwell in the land, and verily you shall be fed. So the first way to stop worrying is trust in the Lord and do good. In Isaiah 26:3, it tells you you'll be kept in perfect peace by trusting in the Lord. Philippians 4:6 through 7 tells you don't worry and get the peace of God. Then if you go from there, you go over to verse 4 in Psalms, and it says, delight thyself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Isaiah 58:14 says, if you do, God will take care of you. Hello. Verse 5, look at this. I love this psalm. Commit your way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. Commit your ways to the Lord. Psalm 37, verse 25 says, put your footsteps with your faith. Commitment will never fail.
Amen.
You got to commit to God. You got to lay your life in his hands. You say, but I'm so worried in my brain. Keep your mouth shut. It'll die unborn. Words, thoughts not spoken die unborn. Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue. It doesn't say the power of life or the power of death. It says life and death are in the power of the tongue. So if you keep your tongue from speaking evil and just keep it in your head, say, I don't have faith, I'm doubting in my head. Well, shut up and don't make it real. It can't affect you. Remember, it's unfruitful, it's barren as long as it's an unspoken thought. Because that's worry, I don't have faith. So, verse 7, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Don't we love that? Fret not. That word has to do with worry. Thyself, because of he who prospers in his way, or because of the man who brings wicked devices to pass. So first thing he tells us is to rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Matthew 11:28 tells us to get to a place where it's just you and God, cast your burden on him, because it's hard to worry when it's just you and him. If that's all that's going on in your mind, it's hard to worry. The verse tells us to wait patiently. Worry will cause you not to wait on the Lord and his timing. We always, if we keep worrying, we always jump the gun. If we were in a race, we would be constantly false starting. I want to give you a couple of notes to, and I'll make these available. These examples next Sunday. You can pick a copy of it up. I just want to talk to you about how to pray for two situations: the unsaved and the backslider. Very simple. It's not going to take long. The only thing you should be praying for an unsaved person is that God sends harvesters to them. You can't claim their salvation. You can't claim their salvation. They have to claim their salvation. You have to pray that God constantly sends harvesters. So if you've got unbelieving relatives, don't pray God save them. That is an unbiblical, unanswerable prayer. Because God's already done everything he's going to do about salvation. And if you don't get it, go buy a crucifix. That's the price that's been paid. Don't pray God save them. God send harvesters into the labor field. And you'll find that, by the way, in Scripture. Now listen, you can pray for their protection, but you can't pray that they live a holy lifestyle. Lord, have them stop drinking. Have them stop doing drugs. Have them stop smoking. Have them stop running around with women, with loose women and people who chew. And you can't pray that, because that can't get answered either. Do you know why? An unsaved person has a sin nature. So you can pray till your lips fall off and your tongue curls up like an old dead cotton ball. They will still sin because they are still unredeemed. Now you can pray that God protects them and hinders things in their lives, but mainly pray that God sends harvesters. Backsliders. Proverbs 14:14. Proverbs 14:14. This is a great, great verse. This is what you pray for backsliders. The backslider in his heart shall be filled with his own ways. A good man shall be satisfied from himself. One of the better definitions that I've heard of this, and if you go into the Amplified, it tells you, and a couple of other translations says, the backslider eventually will tire of their rebellion and their lifestyle. They will eventually tire of their rebellion and their lifestyle. So what you should pray is, Lord, let them be tired of their rebellion and their lifestyle. In other words, for those of you who've never been drunk excessively, you won't understand this. But after a hard evening of trying to have a good time, you are now so full that you have to dispose of it in the porcelain god or on the sidewalk next to your car. Okay? That's what he's talking about. You need to pray happens to the backslider, that he gets so filled up that he becomes disgusted with his own lifestyle and the fruit of it and wants to vomit it out, and God says he'll be right there. He will be right there. That's what it means when he says, I'll never leave you or forsake you. He will always be talking. I mean, yes, some people can get to the point where they get a seared conscience. But I'll be honest with you, I honestly believe that most of the time when people get to a seared conscience, they probably haven't had anybody concerned enough for them to pray. And the Bible says the fervent, effectual prayer of a righteous person avails much. How many of you here are righteous? Better all raise your hands or I'm going to get you born again. You are now the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. You are no longer a sinner. You may sin, but you don't have a sin nature. If the righteous prayers are answered, you pray for them. So if you're a backslidden family, you're not permitted to worry about them, but you can pray for them. But you're not allowed to worry about them. You've got to cast their, when it says cast the care, if you've got a brother, a sister, an aunt, uncle, a best friend, a mom or a dad that's a backslider or that's not saved, pray the prayers God told you can pray, but you cast them on the Lord and you refuse to worry about it because you do no one, especially them, any good if you live in worry because faith is no longer operating in your life.